everybody, and welcome. We're back. This is WTS 247. My name is Danny Murray.
And I'm Graham Merrigan, and this is the best podcast in Ireland. What's the Story podcast?
Yeah, it is. It's actually put Ballybrack on the map. Google didn't have it on the maps until me and Merrow started recording podcasts, and that is a fact. You can Google it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a few times one of our guests used to get a passport to come over to us.
And he happens to be on the show this week, and he's brought a friend. Merrow, why don't you do the honours, my friend?
This is I'm very giddy about this podcast because it has been about 4 months in the making. We have reached out to this guy about 10 times over the years. I met him in Vegas. He ignored me. I'm only joking.
What the fuck are you talking about? First of all, what's this 4 months? What's this 10 times? What's this Vegas? A bunch of lies here off the bat.
That is the voice of the new and improved heel, Ariel Helwani. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm just wondering when the Venmo's coming in for my appearance fee here. Do you guys have Venmo in Ireland? I was told I was being paid 100 quid for this.
Never heard of it.
No, okay, interesting.
Never heard of it. We revoluted Petesy. Petesy has your money.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I have very high standards as far as the podcast that I appear on, and I don't know about this. Did you really ask me 10 times, or was that a lie?
That's a lie.
Okay.
That is a
By the way, that's something I would say as well, just for the record. So I appreciate it.
It was 11 times.
We need to introduce your sidekick that's also on the show today, making his umpteenth appearance. Peter, Mr. Peter Carroll.
Hello, everyone. I just want to know right from the get-go, are you only having me on to get him on? That's what I want to know, because that's what it feels like. I mean, I felt like I was his agent yesterday. I had to rejig the times and everything. 11th hour. Helwani, hey, what's this small fight podcast I'm meant to be doing? I'm so many bigger things.
I never said that.
I can't believe I have to do this. And then I have to change that up. And I'm going,
It actually felt good to delegate this to someone else.
I'll just jump in with a couple of things there. Multi-award winning podcast and PT. This has been a slow burn. We've had to have you on the podcast, as Merrow said, umpteen times in order to get the big fish.
Yeah.
So you were effectively our bait, and I appreciate that, but your job is done now. All right.
Thank you.
Fair play. I accept it.
It is not like we would associate with somebody from Blanchardstown willingly. This has been a tactic, it has been a strategy, and it's finally paying dividends. So I'm very happy with how this has gone.
Well played, lads. Well played, I must say.
How is free agent Ariel Helwani?
Well, honestly, I don't feel like a free agent anymore because I feel like I have 95 jobs. So it's been good. June, I left ESPN, and then I decided in the process of leaving that I would take some time off. And that was daunting in its own right because I never really took an extended period of time off. But I thought it would be beneficial to me and maybe to the audience as well. Distance makes the heart grow fonder. I'd kind of been omnipresent for a decade or so, and I think it worked out well in the sense that I got to go home to Montreal to see my family, and that was amazing. It was one of the best summers of my life, just because I felt really good about the fact that I didn't have a lot of work-related stuff to do. Now, I did do a lot of work-related stuff in the sense that I was kind of preparing all the stuff that I was doing, but it was different kind of work, right? It wasn't booking guests and doing shows, so that was refreshing in its own right. And now that we're underway a month and change or so, it's been really good. It's been very exciting, refreshing, great to work with PT again, great to work with some old friends again, great to do some new projects, great to show people a different side of myself. Really, I can't be happier with it. And, part of the challenge that I was taking on was like fitting all these little puzzle pieces into a larger puzzle. And I feel like they've all some way, somehow fit very nicely together. And I've gotten to do some cool new things like the Jake Paul fight and all that stuff. So yeah, independent Helwani is going really well.
At what point in the puzzle did you pick up your apprentice, young Carrol here? How did that come to be? Because right now, the podcast that I look forward to every week is indeed the Ringer MMA Show. And
that's nice.
It has been, I particularly enjoy it, mostly because I couldn't get my head around just the madness that was that Thriller card a couple of weeks ago. So that episode really helped because the Vander Holyfield situation was blowing my mind. But tell people how you guys got a band together.
Well, I met Petesy several years ago. I think was it McGregor, Diaz?
Poirier, was it?
It was McGregor, Brandao.
McGregor, Brandao. Yeah, I guess that was before 2014, July of 2014. That was the first time I didn't meet you. You weren't in Boston for the
No, I wasn't for Holloway. And then that's when I got talking to you. The Dennis Seaver fight in Boston just after the first fight with Poirier.
But wait, Brandao was before that.
Yeah, so Brandao, and then I started talking to you properly.
But we met at Brandao, no? Did we not meet at Brandao?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I love that trip, man. What a trip. Like, I think back on that was like one of those trips, those magical trips, and there's moments that I remember, like being in the cab, going to the airport, and I know the locals will look down on this, but Temple Bar, right? Like, it was just so great. I love Irish people. I really do. I love this is a French term, but like your joie de vivre. Like, you guys are just very happy-go-lucky people, and you're very warm and welcoming. I love the culture. I love the slang. I love everything about it. So that was just a magical trip, and my only time that I've been there. I hope that I get to go in the future as well. So yeah, so we met then, and then several events after we meet, and I really wanted to work with PT and really admired his work and thought that he brought a lot to the table, especially at MMA fighting in my old days there, that we were missing, an authority on European MMA, but also, as I've often said to him, like, you don't have to just be the European MMA guy. Like, you're very well versed in the entire sport globally, but it's great that, for example, when we're talking about the Till Brunson card, there's a lot of guys on that card from Cage Warriors and other promotions that maybe I'm not watching, or Chuck isn't watching, or other American journalists aren't watching, and you have that insight. And I found an opening, I would like to think, when Mayweather was about to happen, or Mayweather-McGregor, and I pushed. I was like, look, this is going to be the biggest fight of maybe our life. It's going to be the biggest fight of the year for sure. It was a massive deal. And this guy knows everything about Conor, and he knows about his backstory and his coaches and all that. Like, this would be the perfect entry to get him on board. And luckily they obliged, and it all worked out, and I thought it was great. And I left a year later to go to ESPN, and working with people like PT, like Sean Al-Shadi, like Chuck Mindenhall. That was the hardest part about leaving, because I thought we had such a great team. Everyone was out looking for each other and had each other's backs, and there was no jealousy, and that's a very rare thing. And it's something that I kind of was reminded of when I went to ESPN. Like, that camaraderie is a very rare thing to have, where you're not trying to stab each other in the back. You're not looking sideways at someone. So actually, when I was at ESPN, I was even pushing for Mr. Petesy to join the team there. And I do believe that he got an opportunity, and then he freaking slapped me in the face, did a couple of gigs, wrote a couple of great stories, one on Cage. Was it only 2 in the end? Just
Cage Warriors and the anniversary of the Brandao card, yeah.
2 really great stories.
10 out of 10.
Yeah, I think they're still up. You can check them out. One was the anniversary of Brandao, and then he freaking used me and left me high and dry. And even despite that, when I was trying to figure out, where I wanted to work next and with who, I wanted to work with friends and good teammates, and so I pushed this idea of PT, Chuck, and I getting an opportunity to do this show, and luckily it all worked out. Sorry for the long-winded. There's a lot more that I could say, but in conclusion, I just want to say, like, the big thing for me when trying to decide what I wanted to do next was, I want to work with friends. I want to work with people who I like working with. I want to work with people who are good people, who, will support me, and I want to support them, and just have that, that partnership and that camaraderie. And, PT was at the top of the list, and I think he didn't believe me a couple times, or I think he didn't believe that it would come to fruition. But I'm a man of my word, and when I say I'm going to get something done, I freaking get something done.
Yes,
love that.
PT, Ariel spoke there in his monologue. He spoke there about the atmosphere around Dublin, about McGregor Brandao, in the cab, in the taxi, and all. And there was probably everyone around that time. That's all people could talk about because we had been, what's the word? We had been entertained by Conor even on the Late Late Show and stuff, and people were, like they were loving him, and they were loving the story of working class and stuff like that. Now that's dead. Do you see it happening again?
No, for Conor, I don't think that we're going to have a national obsession with him again. But I mean,
Ever?
well, I mean, I don't think so. No, I think
What is he,
he
32
could only
now?
go down, right? Like I've said this to you before, Ariel. Like it got to a stage where a whole generation of people were so behind Conor, and anything he did, we were defending him. This is fans of the sport, and then obviously he reaches that crazy amount of fame, and things don't start going his way, and they really started to pile up. Right, the L started to pile up in terms of what was happening in his public life, and I think it just got to a point where there was a straw that broke the camel's back, where great fans like Graham Merrigan, who traveled all the way around the world to see him, just kind of finally said, I have enough of that. And I think those big shifts, I just think from where Conor was when the whole nation was enamored by him, I'd never seen a nation fall in love with a sports star like that in my lifetime.
So like quickly as well.
It was completely a freak thing. I've never seen it even with guys in bigger sports, Rory McIlroy, Robbie Keane, all this stuff. I'd never seen anything like it. So for me to think about all the stuff he's gone through to get back to there where he was, I think that's very difficult. Can he win the public back? Yes, to a certain extent, but I don't think it will ever be where it was when he was on that initial ascent.
Ariel, do you find that somewhat, that analysis there, do you find that a bit strange considering the American market, the North American market still seems to adore Conor and still seems to be breaking box office records, and we've seen him at the Cubs, and he's front and
One of
center.
the greatest ceremonial first pitches in the history. By the way, he's done a great job of completely changing. You got to give him credit on that one. Like he's leaned all. There was only two ways to go with that one. You either lean in and kind of mock yourself, but like be sort of oblivious to it, or just run away from it. And I think he actually went the right route because it's comical, and like you can tell. I would like to think he's laughing at himself. But look, in America, people love reclamation projects. People love comeback stories. People love the idea of someone having it all and losing it all and then working their way back up and all this stuff. And so I still feel like he is young enough to where all that could happen. Certainly you see he is still a very popular figure. Is he as hot as he was in 2016 or 17? I guess it's debatable.
No, he's not.
But where?
In North America.
But
in North America.
But I'm talking about here. Here. It's a different thing.
I feel like he went from being like that was a part of it. Like he was ours, right? And then he gets so big, he becomes an international commodity. And like you too, who Danny recently called Bono a pox on national TV. Danny said that. It's kind of like when they get to that level of success, the Irish people just have some type of separation. They just go,
why is that though? Why do you think that is? Is it
I think with the Bono thing, it's begrudgery perhaps.
Yeah.
But with the McGregor thing, it's his private life that has come out in, like Ireland is a small place. So you hear rumors all the time. And obviously the press over here can't report on it, but people aren't silly at the same time, that way. So it's a small country. And I think the Bono and the McGregor comparison, I don't think it's that valid in as far as Bono hasn't done that in his private life to what we've heard allegedly McGregor has done in his private life. Do you know that way?
Yeah, okay, 100%. I get that. It's a very, very complex story. I have said, even before the controversies, I always felt, and I think PT heard from it too, like sometimes I would go on these shows And I felt like for some reason they were like rooting for his demise even before all of this. Like for some reason it was either them, taking shots at MMA or saying it's not an honorable way to make a living or it's barbaric and this guy is not like us. He's not humble. It's like, geez, guys, can you at least appreciate, like, not everyone has to fit the mold of what you think an Irish person has to be or any kind of person has to be. Like, this is who he is. He's doing great things. He's representing the flag. I'm talking, 2014, 2015, Aldo, it felt like for some reason there was this weird relationship with him in the national media, in the Irish national media, where people weren't quite, I was on those shows where they were like interrogating me about him, like, oh, the trash talk and the this and that. I was like, geez, this is so strange. And coming from a place, Canada, that had someone like GSP, who obviously is a completely different character, but like I felt like Canada really embraced GSP and was rooting for his success. And here it felt like the national media was rooting against him. And so I'm not surprised that now that you give people a reason to root against you, that it's even, tougher to win them over again. But I don't know. I even felt from the beginning, truth be told, that not the Irish MMA media, but the Irish national sports and just general media never quite got on board with Conor McGregor.
I think part of that, sorry, Peter, I was just going to say, I think part of that is there's a bit of an old guard in Irish journalism, I think, that was never, and to this day still hasn't fully accepted MMA. And I think, like, I remember back to, was it UFC 93, Henderson Franklin in Dublin? And I can remember, Ariel, I'm not sure if you know this or not, maybe you do. There's a radio show over here that's one of the most listened to shows in the country. It's called the Joe Duffy Show, right? And it's terrible. It's just mad. It's just people calling in, and the stories and the complaints they have are just off the wall. But they had a show.
Is it every day?
Monday to Friday, Monday to Friday, kind of lunchtime, peak.
If you're in the supermarket and something happens,
it'll be on Joe Duffy.
There's food that's out of date. Someone will say, "Oh, you want to ring Joe Duffy in the morning?"
Yeah.
Oh God. That's such an old school way of doing media, but I love it. It's kind of why I love the Late Late Show. Like, these things don't really exist in America anymore.
Yeah. So this show, prior to UFC 93, I mean, there was people ringing in and they were like, "Oh, people have died in there, Joe. This is a disgrace. This shouldn't be happening in Ireland. This is blood sport. This is," and I mean, there was a couple of people who rang in who tried to kind of, offer balance. But
Wayne McCullough, do you remember, Danny?
Wayne McCullough, yeah.
Wayne McCullough was working on the PR for the UFC at the time, and he was in the he was in the Gibson Hotel, and he overheard it, or someone said, "Here, Wayne, have you heard of Joe Duffy?" And Wayne obviously knows who Joe Duffy is, so Wayne tried to get on the show to defend it, but it wasn't happening because they were just so far removed from what the actual sport is like.
Yeah, so I think what you're dealing with is this. There is a very kind of weird conservative thing in Ireland of people who don't embrace new things at all, plus that old guard of journalists who just, they couldn't live in a world where MMA and boxing could exist. It was just boxing, and this MMA is a disgrace kind of thing.
Yeah, you mentioned GSP earlier, and I think that is a great comparison in terms of Canada and Ireland. But you guys have had sports stars, celebrities, people who are more famous than GSP. In Ireland, he became the thing you think of when you say Ireland. It used to be Guinness or U2, things like this. But when he was that famous around the Mayweather time, the Habib time, you'd be away in a different country and you go, "Oh, I'm from Ireland," and they say, "Oh, Conor McGregor." And I think when he starts acting badly, it starts to actually, people start to feel it's a reflection on the nation rather than just this guy messing up, right? I think that's how famous he was.
But I'm talking about before he started acting badly. Like, am I wrong?
Yeah. Well, the problem with the media at that stage was they were all bankrupt, essentially. All the media publications, they couldn't hire anybody me to do the job. But to credit where it's due, Paul Kimmage made the trek to Las Vegas. Ken Early made the trek to Las Vegas. Not that Ken's an old man, but after a certain amount of time, he got so big that they had to do something. They were forced to do something. They had to come over and learn about the sport and go to all the media junkets that we did. But unfortunately, they missed all the good stuff nearly. They nearly missed everything that was so magical about it, because they came in for Mendes, and then, he kind of changed his persona then during the Diaz fights. It was a loss. They rejoiced in the loss. And then Mayweather, etc., just gave them an extra reason as far as the Irish mainstream media were concerned to just smash him. I can remember going on radio shows and they just lambasted me. As soon as I'm on the phone, they didn't even ask me my opinion. Here's MMA journalist Peter Carroll. This is a load of bollocks, isn't it, Peter? And, you know, it was incredible.
And so now it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like it's almost like, see, I told you this guy was...
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
100%.
Told you he was a jackass. I told you years ago he was. Just to move on from Mr. McGregor. PT Ariel, do you see him win again in the UFC?
Yeah, I can see him winning a fight, but I don't think he'll be a champion again.
But look at the Cerrone fight. Like, he outclassed him. There are plenty of those fighters out there, and there are plenty of those opportunities out there, right? Like, let's say there's no reason why he can't beat Tony Ferguson, right? Someone who maybe isn't, you know, again, I always, Conor is such a polarizing figure. And he just recently called me a slaphead, and I don't know how to feel about that, if I'm being honest.
No, right. Tell me, lads, what do you think of when someone is called a slaphead? What does that mean?
Baldy.
There. You see,
is that a term of endearment, or is that an insult?
Well, considering they really like you, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it depends on who it's coming from. It's a bit like when an Irish person calls someone a bollocks. It can be great, or it can be, he's a fucking bollocks, you know?
So... yeah, I know. I had Action Bronson. Do you guys know who Action Bronson is?
Yes, I love Action Bronson.
He's the legend. He's the man. He was on my show on Wednesday, and we were talking a little bit about the ceremonial first pitch and kind of having a laugh. And MMA Fighting tweeted the clip, and I woke up to Conor writing like, he wrote a couple of slap heads and was talking about the mechanics of it and all that. And I was like, damn, would you want to slap me now? You know, I feel like I've been pretty fair to Conor. So I sent it to Petesy and I was like, what does this exactly mean? And he explained that it was not as big of an insult.
Yeah, I'd say that was a bit of fun. That's all, man. The Wild Thing Ricky Vaughn comparison did make me laugh, I have to say.
Yes. I mean, if it was somewhat apropos, but in his defense, that those pitches from the mound aren't as easy as people think. In any event, 50 Cent, just ask him.
Yeah.
I think that there are still fights that he can have and sell at arenas and be a relevant part of this sport. The big question is, does he want to do it? Does he have the drive to do it? Does he have the motivation? All those things that people have been talking about. He's still young enough to where he can be very successful. There's still a good 5 years, I think, of fighting at least left in him. The question is, as other fighters have faced as well, you make a lot of money. That's to me the most fascinating thing about Jake Paul right now. Unlike every other fighter who goes into the fight game dirt poor for the most part, then they have to deal with what happens when you become famous and rich, etc. Jake Paul is famous and rich already. At some point, is he going to say, like, why am I doing this nonsense? Why am I doing this weight cut? Why am I doing this training camp? Why am I doing sparring on Tuesdays and Thursdays and all this stuff? So that, I know I just went on a weird tangent there, but it's a byproduct of the fight game.
Yeah, and I'm kind of glad you mentioned this, because I did want to touch on it as well. And I suppose, like, I'll dive in at the deep end. Like, Tyrone Woodley, how bruised must his ego be at the moment?
You want to take PT? Is that for me or you?
Both.
Tyrone Woodley. This is what Jake Paul was mocking him by saying. We can't call him Tyrone Woodley. His name's Tyron Woodley. Byron. Actually, yesterday he told me, sorry for dating us if this is coming out later, but on Wednesday he told me that he's actually getting the tattoo in the end. Oh, don't get the tattoo.
I know.
Actually get the tattoo, mate.
I know.
It's gone. They aren't going to fight you again, lad.
I know.
Hang on, where's he getting it, more importantly?
I asked that question. He said TBD. He said he was thinking his knuckles. And I said to him, like, why don't you get it on a spot that's easy to remove? I don't know where that's... I don't know. I mean, ass would probably make sense because you don't have to look at it.
Bottom of your foot?
Yeah. I mean, there were no specifications as to where it has to happen. In any event, yeah, I'm sure there's a part of him. But you know what? There was a lot at stake there for Tyron. And I felt like he left, obviously he wanted the W, but like he left with his legacy relatively intact. I don't think Ben Askren did. I think Ben Askren's legacy was hurt mightily.
Big
He didn't
time.
get knocked out. He didn't get dropped. He didn't get outclassed. Of course, would he have rather won? Yes, but I don't feel like this has now. I don't think this is an indictment on his career, and I also don't think like when the story of Ben Askren's career is told, unfortunately, I don't think it's fair, but unfortunately, I think this is going to be pretty high up the story, right?
Yeah.
I don't think this is high up on Tyrant's story. I think this is like a footnote because of how he performed.
In regards to the bigger picture with the Paul brothers, I mean, they're YouTube stars. I didn't know who they were up until the last 10 months or maybe 15 months, but they're YouTube stars, and they're flirting with Vince McMahon. They're doing crazy numbers at the box office. Is this good for combat sports? Like, is this good for boxing? Is this, I mean, you do see casuals tweeting like saying, why are people giving this airtime? Why are people buying this? You know, where does it go? Like, what's their ultimate goal? Is it just to make money, or is it will they get a sanctioned fight for a title? Where does it go?
I think it's a great spectacle, to be honest. And I think it's bringing in new eyes to the fight game that, you know, they didn't have before. I don't look at this in the same way as Canelo Plant. You know, I don't see it like that at all. I think it's its own entity, really.
Right.
And I think it's a good thing because, you know, you need a foot into something. Like, I think the people who are watching Jake Paul fights have never tuned into a boxing event for the most part. You know, they're tuning in to see Jake Paul. And they're actually putting on some legitimate fights. Like, some of them didn't pan out so well, right, with Tommy Fury and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they're putting on legitimate fights on the card. They're making a lot of money. And it's stirring up a lot of interest within the fight game. Like, I mean, if you ask most of the UFC fighters now if they could get out of their contract to fight Jake Paul, I'm sure they'd bite your hand off, you know? So
that's because UFC pay about 20 quid an hour, though.
I know, yeah, it's terrible. But the fact that it's there and the fact that it's an option, I think, is a very good thing. The more options, the merrier. The fact that it's there for someone like Tyron Woodley, whose career seemed to be over when the UFC, you know, after his last fight with Luke, it seemed like, you know, where does this guy go from here to go into a fight like that? I think that's an incredible thing.
So are you saying that it's like, want of a better term, it's not boxing, it's not MMA, but it's actually like sports entertainment?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I do. That's how I see it. Some kind of weird hybrid. It's not quite WWE either, but it borrows heavily from it as well, I think.
I will just say, I see a lot of people saying that this is a sign that boxing is in trouble, that boxing is dead. To me, this is a sign that boxing is actually really healthy and successful and thriving. If boxing were truly dead, people like Jake Paul wouldn't want to attach themselves to it. They would try to find the next cool thing to do or the next fad. It isn't easy to be a boxer. Like, say what you will about the guy and his skills and his path. He's still getting punched in the face. He's still training. He's still working out like a madman. He's still cutting weight, all this stuff. None of these things are necessarily fun, but it seems like it's guiding him and it's making him into a better person. And so to me, this is actually an indication that boxing is doing really well. Like, nothing drives me more up the wall than hearing people talk about boxing being dead. Boxing is doing great. There are a lot of great boxers, and it seems like every single weekend there's a fight that I need to go out of my way to watch, and a fight that I'm just as excited about to watch as I am an MMA fight. This weekend, for example, Anthony Joshua is fighting. I love watching Anthony Joshua fight. Some people say he's boring. I think he's a magician out there. He's a genius boxer, especially a heavyweight boxer, the way he uses his jab and his footwork and his speed. And I want to see that Fury fight, and I want to see what happens with Fury in a couple of weeks, and on it goes. And so I think boxing is doing great. I don't think this is a problem. I don't think it's a bad thing. And I will also add that there is no finite amount of spots in the world of combat sports. And so the same reason I was ultimately okay with CM Punk doing his UFC thing, and it's the same reason I'm okay with Jake Paul. And by the way, it's ironic that, you know, the guy in the middle of this, Dana White, is critical of Jake Paul, yet was willing to put CM Punk in the UFC, but that's neither here nor there. We can ignore that irony you know, how it comes across as being a hypocrite. The point is,
Dana White being a hypocrite.
Yeah, come on, Ariel. All right, we've all said a few crazy things on here, but that takes the biscuit, mate.
He's a good guy.
The point is, you have a situation where Jake Paul's fighting on a card. Tyron Woodley's getting his biggest payday, including when he was a champion. People like Amanda Serrano, are getting more money than ever, more money than ever, and more shine than ever. Daniel Dubois, Tommy Fury, Montana Love, Ivan Branchik, all these legitimate boxers, quote unquote legitimate boxers, are getting greater opportunities, more shine than ever before because of this guy. So if you are a fan of boxing and if you are a purist, and how funny is it that people try to defend the sanctity of boxing when there are a ton of issues in boxing? Be happy that some of your favorite fighters, that these legit boxers who did it the hard way, who came from nothing, are getting opportunities because of this guy. Who is being harmed here? I don't see a single entity that's being harmed here. In fact, I only think it's better for the sport of boxing if someone like Jake Paul is involved. So I have no problem.
My favorite thing about it is how he's working up Dana White. Like, I mean, I just think it's incredible. Like, Dana doesn't realize he's just doing an advertisement for Jake Paul every time he talks about him.
Yeah.
And you can see he's seething. There's a very rare amount of people in the world that can make Dana that angry. One of them is on this call.
Yeah.
The other one is Jake Paul.
Ariel and the Paul brothers.
I think
he loves me. What are you talking about?
I think you kind of hit it for me as well there, Ariel, when you're saying it, because I look at people want to be on a Paul brother fight card. People want to be involved. They want that rub. You compare that to UFC this weekend, and you've got Nick Diaz is making his first appearance in the Octagon in a number of years, and he's talking about, I don't really know why I'm doing this. Whoever made this fight is an idiot. And I'm kind of like, that. And I know it's the Diaz brother, and I know, but we're hearing that language from one of the biggest stars on a fight card compared to the eagerness and the excitement that we're hearing in a Paul card. I don't think there's much doubt about boxing being anywhere near dead. It's not. It's thriving. But that kind of language from an MMA card kind of makes you go, oh, what's going on here?
Well, Nick Diaz is a special character because he has had a complex relationship with fighting for quite some time. He has talked openly about not liking fighting and everything that goes into it and hurting another individual. I mean, he's honestly been talking about this for almost a decade. So part of that is just Nick being Nick. That being said, I feel uncomfortable with this whole situation. And look, yesterday I was writing about it on Twitter, and then Conor of all people chimes in, and then I'm being shamed for having feelings about fighters, and I don't know how to properly verbalize it. But when I look at Nick, and I've been saying this for several weeks, I want to hear from Nick because I want to know, is he doing this because he wants to or because he has to? And what I mean by has to is someone coercing him into doing it? Does he need the money? Does he owe money? He talked openly about the IRS issues that he had after the GSP fight. I mean, there's a lot to this guy. And you don't just walk away from something for 6 years. And we've all seen him partying and drinking and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden come back and you're like, oh, I'm back. And I now love to punch people in the face. When I told you guys for 10 years, I didn't like doing it. I'll never forget when I asked him before a fight, I think it was Marius Saromskis, and I said, are you excited? Like a stupid question. And he got so mad at me. No, I'm not excited. I don't want to do this. And so now here he is all these years later, and he still feels the same way. And you see him sitting there, and it's like, man, there's got to be a better way for Nick Diaz to be a part of the fight game, whether it's coaching, whether it's mentoring, whether it's like, if he doesn't want to do this, I don't want to see him do this. I don't want to see him take part in this. And especially when you consider the fact that he probably isn't making what he deserves, and he probably owes some money, and there's people behind him that he doesn't trust, that he doesn't feel like they're looking out for his best interest. I don't know, man. I feel conflicted. I see a lot of people, and dare I say in the media, not present company, but like waving pom-poms, Nick Diaz is back. And I don't want to take part in that. I'm just praying that he's okay. And I know that makes me soft, and I know it's the fight game, and I know we're alpha males, and we have a lot of testosterone, and we just want our Saturday night fights with our wings and our beer, and we just want to have a grand old time. But I'm sorry, maybe I'm a little too close to the sun to where I actually have feelings towards these people, and maybe I shouldn't let this happen because I'm a journalist, but I have feelings towards Nick Diaz, and I feel a certain way about this man, and I know he's been through a lot. And I just don't want to see him get hurt. And I don't want to see a shell of Nick Diaz's former self in there getting knocked out by Robbie Lawler. I don't want to see it. I don't want anything to do with it.
Ariel, is a testament to the lack of stars that UFC have created in the sense that they're matchmaking a fight that happened 17 and a half years ago?
Well, you heard him say, you know, in that interview with ESPN, like, I don't even know why this fight is happening, which is alarming in its own right. Look, I don't mind this fight, to be honest, because the idea of Nick Diaz going in there against Kamaru Usman or Khamzat Chimaev, like, I don't want to see him get pummeled. I think actually easing your way back in against a guy like Robbie Lawler, who you know, who you beat, who you have confidence that you can beat, who you have a history of fighting against, who isn't at the top of the game. Like, I think the UFC got it right, to be honest. Like, the matchup on paper makes sense. But, like, if the guy doesn't want to be there and he doesn't want to cut the weight and he doesn't want to do what he signed up to do, like, that to me is a red flag. And obviously Nick has always, like, I'm not blind to who he has been and what he's all about. He's always had issues with anxiety and social anxiety and fighting and all. Like, these aren't new things, but, like, I don't know, man. It's one thing to have those feelings and be 25 and be able to get up for a fight and beat another man. It's another to be in your late 30s and be out of the game for 6 years and to just be kind of pushed in there. On top of it, you're sitting there with that stupid uniform and you're not making money.
I hate that. The crypto fucking t-shirt.
The whole thing felt like this. You know what it felt like? It felt like Weekend at Bernie's, where they were just like trying him out there and put a uniform on him and like, let's try to make money with, you know, like, come on, man.
We were told with the Reebok deal that it's going to be the evolution of MMA, and now with the Venom deal, what has either deals done to the UFC?
Screw the fighters over, really.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
That's the main thing it did.
Take money out of fighters' pockets.
But isn't the previous deal, like, without Reebok and Venom, we saw personalities in the fighters. Now we don't see anything. Now we have like sometimes six pay-per-views in a month. We have Lawler, Diaz, two fighters that fought 17 and a half years ago. Like, there's so much options out there now. Is UFC needed?
I still think, I think that the UFC is still there. Like, I mean, it's still the major league of this sport. You know, there's no doubt about it. It's still the one every fighter who goes to the gym for the first time, starts training, they're vision themselves as UFC fighters in the future. But I think the issue people have who cover the sport is because UFC's boast and Dana White's boast of how mainstream they are. We're getting to be one of the top 4 leagues in America, which just seems crazy to even fathom that. I think it's annoying for us knowing how much the company was sold for and everything like that, and knowing the profits they're making, that they aren't making mainstream moves for their fighters, right? Like, and they aren't going to. They aren't going to.
And then Ashley and Daly gets paid €8,000 for showing up, like.
Do you know, once I was on RTE and they were talking, it was me, Paddy Hewlin and Aisling Daly against Kenny Egan, the boxer, and some broadcast from RTE. And he said, like, Aisling had retired at the stage, but medically retired, or either her or Paddy had. And he turned around and it's this big debate. It's filmed in a boxing ring, absolutely mental. And they go to Aisling, I just don't know how you get paid millions of dollars for this. And Aisling's like, what you know what I mean? It's just the idea that because they're in this mainstream sport that they're making so much money. Most of these guys come out of their careers in debt. I think that speaks to what Ariel was saying about Nick as well. Like, to have an icon, a guy who transforms a fight week to the point where people are talking about, did you see Nick Diaz walking into the hotel? Oh my God. Did you see Nick Diaz with his shirt off, shadow boxing? Did you see Nick Diaz's interview? All of this stuff, weigh-ins, everything becomes an event. And we know he's not getting paid the same amount of money or anywhere near it. Someone like Jake Paul, who people are saying is a laughingstock, he's getting nowhere near that. I think that's what hurts us about the UFC. And Ariel speaks about this all the time. Like, as much as it's the UFC's problem, it's the fighters' problems for not coming together and unionizing. Of course, they're going to do it for as long as they can and get away with it. But I think that's what kind of hurts. And I think, speaking about Nick Diaz, I had so many people reach out to me in the last, whenever the ESPN interview was put out there, talking about how uncomfortable it made them feel. But I think it made them feel uncomfortable because Nick always kind of spoke like that, as Ariel said before the Zaromskis fight, talking about how much he hated fighting and stuff. But the things that he's saying in the interview is making you look at it like straight in the face, the brutality of the fight industry, where he's like, I've given everything I have to this game. And he has. Look at his record. It's incredible. Yeah. And it's given me nothing back. And he's talking about looking at his brother's face getting split open against Leon and going, Jesus Christ, I'm going to have to do this in a few weeks, because you know he's not getting compensated for it. You know he's not. And I think that makes people uncomfortable. That's what the uncomfortable thing is. He's literally saying, like, I don't want to do this. I'm going to get my face fucking destroyed on Saturday night. I don't even know who I'm doing this for. The fight game has given me nothing. I think that's what makes people uncomfortable, hearing someone speak the truth about the fight game and how horrific it is.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's a very salient point. And the flip side of that is there's a really good title fight that I'm looking forward to. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's I'm not trying to be a dick. Like, what you've said is 100% true, but at the same time, I'm also kind of like, I can't wait for that fucking title fight though.
Yeah. Look, I mean, we have to put up. We kind of have our face with it more than most, because this is our livelihood. But I mean, I've lost count of how many fighters I've seen, chewed up and spat out by the fight game, and I'm sure Ariel's the same. I'm sure Ariel has 1,000 more stories than I do, but that's what it is. That's the reality of the game, and it's that brutality that kind of draws people to it too. And as you say, like, in one breath, we're saying, how terrible is this about Nick Diaz? Geez, I can't wait to see Volkanovski v. Ortega. You know what I mean? It's just, it's the way it is.
Well,
and that to that, Ariel.
Well, yeah, I will just say that, look, I know I try to sometimes park these feelings because, I know that what we do and what the fights represent are an escape for people on Saturday night, Sunday morning, whatever. And I don't want to get, my feelings involved. I get that. That being said, when you know how the sausage is made and when you're flying as close to the sun as we are sometimes, it's impossible to turn a blind eye. I remember when I was younger, I read a book about Howard Cosell, and towards the end of his life, as you may know, he didn't like boxing anymore. In fact, he was very outspoken about, not liking boxing anymore and seeing what it did to his friend Muhammad Ali and whatnot. And Howard Cosell was the voice of boxing in this country, the face of boxing media as well. And I didn't quite understand that. I'm like, how could you turn on it after all those years, after all that it did for you? And I'm not saying that I've gotten to that point, far from it. I still love it, and I love the fighters in particular, more so than the fights. I hope people understand I love the fighters. And I respect them a lot. I have such admiration for them. But there are times where you're like, man, am I part of the problem? Am I someone that should be doing more to help them? I don't know. I don't know what our role is sometimes. And again, like I guess I'm being all sort of, emotional with you guys there or whatever. Yeah, because like I wrote that thing yesterday, and then Conor pops in, and when Conor pops in, a bunch of other people pop in. And I agree with everything that he said. Like, fighters just like let them scrap. Like, this is their life. At the end of the day, who am I to tell them what to do and what not to do and all that stuff? So I have no issues with what he wrote. But then I kind of try to explain where I'm coming from, and it's all like, shut the F up, go cover, dancing, go freaking, like, man, I like MMA more than you guys. I've devoted my life to MMA. What have you done for MMA? You know what I mean? Like, what have you done? You spend your Saturday and want to put blinders on and just see these guys get battered, and you don't care what happens to them on Sunday. And so don't tell me about like the fighters. Don't tell me about go cover this or that, go watch this or that. Like, I love this sport. I mean, I put a lot into this sport where I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I've earned the right to speak up sometimes when I feel like things don't feel 100% kosher. So I don't know. And as I said to PT this morning, I think that Nick brings out these feelings in all of us because, like, I think we all want to protect Nick. And I think we all, I think Nick represents why we got into this sport to begin with, why we love this sport. He represents 04, 05, Gomi, Gogo Plata, Pride, Strikeforce, Elite XC, flipping off Frank Shamrock. Like, that's what he represents. And we feel so far removed from those days. And like, we don't want to see one of those guys, one of the last guys left from that era, get trotted out there in a freaking Venom jersey and a crypto logo and get beaten up. Like, that's just depressing, man. That's depressing.
I was going to say that, Ariel. Like, when I was watching the Bret interview, I was like, this is no longer the Nick Diaz game. Like, it feels the UFC that he was a part of, it's so far removed from that. Like, it feels like he doesn't fit in, like a square in a round hole kind of job. You know what I mean? It's just, it doesn't feel right.
He fits into the Wild West,
anti-establishment, all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
that's not like Nick Diaz and his brother, but Nick in particular used to walk to the cage wearing jeans and a belt buckle and boots. Like, that's how he walked to the cage. and we
With straight
loved
up
them
new
more.
metal
And we
playing.
loved it. Yeah, we loved it.
We loved it. But by the way, that's why we love fighters, because Mike Tyson wore all black and Tito wore fire on his shorts and Chuck wore ice on his shorts and GSP came out like, we love that about them. We love their personalities. We love that they're unique. That's why I love pro wrestling, because Stone Cold comes in as, like that's what we love. We love individuality. And for some reason they have stripped that away and it drives me nuts.
The incredible professionalism, Ariel. You've just given us the segue to professional wrestling we've been waiting for there.
But as well as that, though, it's like you were talking about wheeling Nick Diaz out. It's almost like Vince McMahon wheeling out Hulk Hogan every year, for some
At least Hulk
anniversary,
Hogan gets to wear his merch.
I suppose.
And he's still got the leg drop, man. At the end of the day, he still has the leg drop.
He's not doing that leg drop.
He can't, man. He goes leg drop. That hip will go pop. You know what I mean?
So
I've
literally got one entry into the pro wrestling conversation and destroyed myself immediately. That's
exactly.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Flew too close, yeah, man.
Ariel, you're now also working with BT in the UK for WWE coverage. How are you finding that?
I love it. I have long loved WWE, and I'll be honest, pro wrestling, but I'll be honest that, there was a period, especially during my MMA, journalism career, that it was hard to keep up with it. If only because like MMA to me feels like real pro wrestling. It's the same type of characters and setups and storylines, but it's a different kind of payoff. And so I really devoted a lot of time and energy to MMA, but my kids really got into it over the past year, the pandemic. And so that was like an easy transition to get up to speed with the characters and the storylines and all the stuff. And I feel like MMA right now is I feel like pro wrestling is hotter than MMA right now. I feel like with what's going on with WWE and AEW, and just last night we had 20,000 fans in Queens. Like, amazing. I know you joke about it, but like you have to appreciate this. Like, oh yeah. 20,000 people in Queens, New York, at where the U.S. Open is played, right, attended a non-WWE event. That's the largest crowd in over 20 years in North America for a non-WWE event. Like, could you imagine Bellator drawing 20,000 fans to an event? Could you imagine PFL drawing 10,000, let alone 20? Like, there is no promotion in MMA that could combat what the UFC does. And so to see competition, which by the way, I would argue makes the WWE product better, and of course gives, the wrestlers an opportunity to make more money and have options, like, this is great. This is why we fell in love with wrestling in the 90s Attitude Era. So it's a great time. And just as an aside, like BT, I reached out to them in the latter stages of my, figuring out my life, because like I just really love their content. I love what they represent. I love how they cover MMA and pro wrestling and boxing. And I'm really, I love European people. I love English people. I love UK. Like I'm really honored to be a part of their team. Very small part. They've got people who are more, present each and every week. But so far it's been really great to work with them.
You start saying it's coming home and you're gone, Helwani, I'm telling you.
Yeah. You were saying earlier on about GSP in Canada and how popular he was. Would he have been a household name like Bret Hart was in the 90s?
I would like to think so. Look, it took a little longer for GSP to get the respect that he deserved as well, the attention. But I never felt, as opposed to Conor, like for GSP, it took a while. But when he made it, there wasn't pushback. There was no barbaric and all this stuff. With Conor, I felt like it may have taken a while, but it also, once he got there, there was the pushback. And then, of course, the latter stages of their career, like GSP has been a completely different citizen than Conor. Just different character, right? Different personality and all that. And that's fine. But I would like to think so. Canadians are very supportive. They're very proud. Like, it's in many respects, it's like in Ireland, like a Katie Taylor or someone else like breaks through and does well on the international stage. For the most part, usually you're going to support them if you're from a smaller nation. And we're the same way. I mean, there's more people living in California than Canada. So if someone gets a medal, a gold medal, silver, like that Penny Oleksiak is a great swimmer. Like, she's now a hero in Canada. So I would like to think it would be the same thing. Dana White did a very smart thing in GSP's heyday, where he called him more famous than Wayne Gretzky, who's a very famous hockey player.
Yeah, the great one.
And like, that's an absurd statement. He will never be more famous than Wayne Gretzky, but this was classic Dana White promotion. And I'm being honest, like he did because then every talk show, everyone was debating this. And in turn, it got people to know, like, who's this guy that this guy is saying is bigger than Wayne Gretzky? It was a very smart move on his part. This was like UFC 129 time when he's fighting, at the Sky Dome against Jake Shields, like really the peak of his popularity. I thought that was a really shrewd move on Dana's part.
What about Bret Hart's anti-American heel run? Where he was loved in Canada and he just hated an American. That was a great time for professional wrestling.
It was a very smart storyline, like and very rare to have someone who is, as you said, like beloved in his country and then everywhere else is playing an uber heel. Yes, my claim to fame is that I was at the 1997 Survivor Series, the Montreal Screwjob. I was there. Yeah, I was there as a fan. 97, I was 15, and I love Bret Hart. Bret Hart is probably my. I think I don't know. I think it's probably. I'm pretty sure it is. Fact, he was my first favorite athlete, and of course, early on, I thought it was all real and whatnot. And I remember being a kid at the doctor's office, probably 8 years old, getting a shot of some kind. And my mom, and I was nervous, and my mom told me to close my eyes and to think of something that made me happy. And I remember thinking in my head, I remember vividly where I was thinking of Bret Hart winning the heavyweight championship. This is before, that's how much he meant to me. And at the time, he was the tag team guy, right? So like the idea of him breaking through and getting that was a really big deal. Yeah, I loved him. I loved what he represented. I thought he was so cool. The hair, the glasses, the pink tights, all that. And man, I'll never forget one of the best memories for me as a journalist, UFC 149 in Calgary. Someone put us in contact with each other. He lives in Calgary. I was there. It was Hennebrow versus Uriah Faber. And I asked if I could interview him. And we were staying at this Airbnb somewhere in town. And Bret freaking Hart got in his car and drove to our Airbnb, did an interview with me, and then just sat around and talked in the apartment. Like just like came alone, no entourage, no one else with him. And we talked about the screw job and Owen and all this stuff. And I was like, I can't believe you're here. And B, I can't believe you're this cool and down to earth. Like Bret Hart.
Was that surreal, was it?
Absolutely surreal. Sean Sheehan likes to joke that I use the word surreal too much. And I say that like, there's so many moments in my life where I just can't believe I'm there. It's like the Jake Paul Woodley thing. I'm in the ring. I'm in the freaking ring in a spot where I saw Larry Merchant and Kellerman and Jim Gray, and that felt surreal. Being in a small apartment, a 500 square foot apartment with Bret Hart, and he drove to come do an interview with me, and then just is hanging out. Isn't like, oh, thank God this is over. I need to get out of here. It's just like hanging out and answering all my fanboy questions, and I try not to overdo it. I don't even think I took a picture with him because like I've never done that. I don't want to be that guy ever and fanboy, but like he was hanging out and just a great memory. And those are moments like if you could have told me when I was 8, 9, 10 that I would get to do this for a living, I mean, I would have A, never believed you, and B, been over the moon. So I try to be very thankful and grateful and remember those moments.
Have you any feelings on Tony Khan and AEW buying having the partnership with the Owen Hart Foundation now? Have you seen that?
Yeah, of course I saw it, and I can't help but feel like these guys can't miss. They just seem to be hitting all the right notes.
So me and Danny were saying, it's like they almost sat around the table and was like, how do we rub Vince up the wrong way again?
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to think it's genuine and not that they're using Owen Hart's memory to annoy anyone. But I also think that Tony, because he's so young, and I've never met him or talked to him, but he seems to be, a really smart guy and have smart people around him, seems to know what will endear the product to the fans. And again, I don't mean this as an insensitive thing, but it's like, man, everyone, I'll tell you, it's crazy that it happened on that day. So, I don't know if you know this, but like I do MMA Hour a couple times a week. And there's this guy, Robert Pearson, who draws these pictures for great. Like, yeah. And he's been doing this since DC and Helwani. And so on Sunday, this is before this Owen Hart thing came out. On Sunday, he told me like what the picture would be for this week, and it was me dressed up as Owen Hart.
I did see it. Yeah.
Okay, well, wait a second. Not quite, because he's done this now for like a year and a half, and I've never said anything about like I'm just honored that he would do it. And I told him I didn't feel comfortable. I should not be dressed up as Owen Hart. Like, to me, what happened to him was tragic, and it's different than like Eddie Guerrero or all the other tragedies in the sport, because it happened in front of us. It happened at an event, and it should have never happened, and it was a horrible accident, and it had nothing to do with him, right? It wasn't self-inflicted. And I just said, I don't know if it's because I'm Canadian or because I loved Owen Hart or the Hart family, like, I should not be dressed up as Owen Hart. I'm not worthy of that. And I said, I'm really sorry, but he had to draw another one at the 11th hour, because I just didn't feel comfortable with that idea. And then weirdly enough, the AEW thing comes out the next morning. And so, like, again, it was a reminder that like this guy is special. And I just think that AEW is doing a great job honoring him. And I hope that they're doing it for the right reasons. And they just seem to know how to hit the wrestling fans in the heart. Like, I kind of view now like AEW, they're great competition, and I think it's raising WWE's game. But like, my kids aren't really into AEW, and that's okay. It almost feels like the adult show, and Raw and SmackDown is the kid show, and I think that's actually fine. I think it's great. Like, I was watching MJF cut a great promo last week.
He's amazing.
It was freaking amazing, but like, I don't want my kids, honestly, to listen to that, right? Like, or like the shithead stuff. Like, and so I'm happy that that's not on Fox on SmackDown. And so it's nice that like
he's only 24, isn't he, MGF?
Yeah, he's incredible. But I think it's great that the Attitude Era fans have this, and then I think it's great that the kids have someone like Big E to look up to and all this stuff. So wrestling is just on fire right now.
I'm conscious we're running over time, and you're a very busy. No. I mean, we'd let you waffle for as long as you want, but I'm just conscious. Petey was telling us how busy you were, and that he'll get in trouble if he doesn't get you out of here on time. So
that's true.
And Petey will try pull you in here, man. I'm gonna try pull you into the wrestling conversation, because one of the best things about AEW recently has been Dan Lambert.
Yes.
Have you and Ariel? I'll come to you as you're now a heel. I want to get your take on his promos now. Pete, have you seen any of his work in AEW?
Yeah, I have. Luckily, I was sent homework by Danny and Graham ahead of this, so I got to watch them.
You were sent homework from me, and you were being a spoiled brat, and I was like, do it.
This I'm natural, you know. I don't want to have anything forced down my neck. But all I'm saying is, Kayla Harrison apparently wrote all of these things. It's nothing to do with Dan Lambert. He is merely a piece of flesh that they put out there to say these things. Well, the great Kayla Harrison is actually the one that's coming up with it. That's my only 2 cents on it. I think it's great, though. I think it's amazing that Dan Lambert is so public in this, because I felt, maybe I'm wrong, I always knew he was the owner of ATT and he'd pop up here and there, but he would never be prominent at all. You know, it felt like he was just this kind of entrepreneur in the background pulling the strings that you didn't really know much about. But it's the complete opposite with AEW. And I believe he has a massive collection of world titles as well. So he's a real obsessive about it. So
46 years he's been a fan.
Yeah, well, I think it's great that they're melding the cultures. Because even though I'm not a wrestling fan, I've said this to you guys loads of times. Like, I think there's obvious.
You watched the Royal Rumble.
I tried to every now and again. I try to get back into it just to get the cultural kind of references. But I understand the culture of wrestling. Like, I watch all the documentaries about it. When you guys were talking about Bret Hart, I'm thinking about the great documentary they made about him. Wrestling with Shadows or something, I believe it was called. I even got the WWE package to watch the Monday Night War after one of my appearances on your show, because you were like, this is amazing. And that's what that sounds like, this AEW thing and the WWF, whatever they're called. That's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like it sounds like there's conflict there, but it actually brings more eyes to the product. Kind of like Jake Paul and MMA.
You also need to...
Ships, man.
You were talking about the documentaries, Pete. You need to get onto YouTube and watch all the Dark Side of the Ring.
I've watched a good few of them. I watched the one about El Ric Flair and
unbelievable, brilliant.
Yeah, recently it's
the one that airs this evening is about Chris Kanyon, which is the first openly gay professional wrestler.
Wow.
Yeah. Ariel, Dan Lambert, what do you think?
look, I think he's the man. I think that his promo skills are great. I think that it's awesome that he's a big wrestling fan. I think it's great that he collects belts and has all these amazing belts at his house and the whole room and all that stuff. I just don't know where this angle is going, and it doesn't feel like it's connecting with the people like they thought it would. Like, it feels like he's trying to do these scripted shoot interviews and break the fourth wall and talk about AEW as an outsider. But it's like, I don't know.
That's shade. That is shade.
I'm actually not feeling it as much. Like, I see a lot of people going gaga, and I'm like, I feel like
Monday.
Well, yes. To be honest, I mean, he's the biggest AEW mark in the.
It could lead to Arlovsky versus Jake Hager.
And you care about this?
No.
Well, that's the problem. Like, I think Kayla. The funny thing is that Kayla was anti-MMA. Now she's a big star, and she's going to be an even bigger star soon. And she's anti-pro wrestling, and now I think she could be the best one of the bunch. I think Kayla could be bigger than Ronda and better than Ronda at pro wrestling. I just think the world of her. But I mean, it's like all these. I don't know. Like, first of all, I can't picture JDS as a mean guy. Like, he's the nicest human being on the planet, and like he chose JDS to be your backup. She's like, he's too nice. So I don't know. I feel like I almost wish that they used Dan as not the ATT guy. Like, I just like use him as a heel manager and don't do this MMA team versus, because then it's also weird. There's two wrestlers with him as well. So like, what do they have to do with the MMA team? Like, I think, they do a great job with Don Callis. He's like an old school.
Don is brilliant.
And there needs to be more of those in wrestling. Like, Heyman to me is the gold standard right now, but Callis is great, fellow Canadian. Like, I would have just rather Dan cut promos for those two guys and leave it at that. Like, I don't think you need Paige and Austin and all these guys with him. So I don't know.
That's a very, very good point. You like the promos, but you don't see where they're going.
Exactly.
Well,
what's the payoff here?
I'm enjoying it, and I can't wait to see where it goes. And if it results in, Arlovsky versus Jake Hager, then I'm all right.
Is that a wrestling match or an MMA fight?
It'd be a wrestling match, man.
Oh.
And a testament to what Erdo was saying about JDS. I'll give you a quick JDS story before we go. I think it was, I can't remember what UFC it was. It was one of the ones we traveled to. I want to say 121. He was doing an audience Q&A. Lesnar Velasquez, I think. I could be wrong there. He was doing an audience Q&A. And me being a plucky young MMA fan in the audience decided, I'm going to ask a question. JDS. Asked a question. He couldn't understand a word I said. Right? Not a word. He was just like, I don't know. And I asked again. And I asked a third time. And at that point, he could pick up on my embarrassment. So in the end, he was just like, you want to just take a photo? So I just took a photo with him and left it at that. But it was lovely. You know what I mean? So
he's a legend. He's one of the nicest people. So I don't know. I mean, look, again, if Arlovsky's getting paid, if these guys, like, I'm happy for them. I just, like, of all the things you would think of all the things AEW is doing, this would be the one that like excites me the most. And it's kind of like, like, I love Adam Cole's entrance last week. Holy crap, that was amazing. That was, I mean, for the crowd to be that, Pete, you got to watch this. Like, as someone who just appreciates a crowd, like this guy was making his debut for the company, of course, a known commodity, and they were just playing along and eating up everything that he was doing. It was a thing of beauty. Like, I don't know if I've seen a debut that good. And I could tell you what, like, I think the days of WWE using, what's the word? Like general, like cult of personality. What is that? Like a song? Like, I think they'll never do that again, because to give a guy, like, imagine Punk debuts without that song. It's not quite the same feeling. Like, it will take some time. The days of using that type of music in WWE, I think, might be over, because you don't want someone to leave and now have that music with them. The music is a big part of it, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's just a fascinating time.
Well, Ariel, listen, you were talking about, off air, we were saying about your love of the Late Late Toy Show. And I just want to introduce you to your new League of Ireland Premier Division soccer team, football team, but soccer for you North American fans. You're now supporting Shamrock Rovers Football Club.
He's a Northsider. He's a Northside Dublin man. That's what we've made him honour.
Who is
Rovers?
Ariel's basically from Blanchardstown. I've given him all of his culture, his Irish culture.
You're effectively
saying... He is a Shamrock Rovers fan.
No, that's South Dublin. That's Paddy Hewlin's neck of the woods.
I'm
You're basically
sending him a
saying to
jersey.
him, Mero, here, you're supporting the Boston Celtics. That's what you're saying to Ariel Helwani.
I don't do that. Of course, I have not.
I
Here's
am
the
sending
thing.
him a jersey at Christmas.
Well, that's the thing. A couple years ago, Darren Till, Patty Pimblett, and Molly McCann were all vying for my football allegiance. Some wanted me to go Liverpool, some wanted me to go Everton. In the end, the lovely meatball Molly McCann got it done where Everton sent me a whole bunch of merch and some cups and stuff. And I was bought. My fandom was bought. And so you coming on here just saying this is the way it is. No. You got to buy my
I have a question. Oh my God, this is brilliant. On the day Ariel left MMA fighting, I sent him over a little present. It was a Dublin jersey. Did you or did you not leave that in the studio? Because I haven't seen a sniff of that wonderful blue jersey since. You should have been on repping that through all of our All-Ireland finals.
Can I be honest?
Destroying the world, and now we're shit.
What size was it?
It was large.
Yeah, I can't. People think I'm a tiny. I'm not. I can't wear large.
What? Large. People think I'm tiny. What are you talking about? Large means big.
No, I wear XL or double XL.
Mate, you're not that big.
That's American weight, though.
How much do you think I weigh?
I'd say you weigh about 200 pounds because you're 6'1", 6'1", 2-ish.
I weigh 200. Fluctuate 201, 199, but like, I'm a big
I was
guy.
actually sending you and Eric shirts in a size too small to motivate you to get on the treadmill.
No. You actually said, didn't you send him a Liverpool one or something?
Yeah, and he had to lose weight to wear it, yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't want, God bless him, but I didn't want to have that look. So I appreciate it. Next time, ask me my size and I'll proudly rock it. But it was very nice. It was very kind of you, and he did wear it. Listen, you know how I feel about Ireland. I love Ireland. And
that's what I wanted to say, actually, because I feel like I've got you to brown belt level with crack. You know what I mean? You've brown belt. And I'm happy to say today was actually a process to grade you as a black belt in crack. So, lads, it's up to you guys. We give him the full-on, Dan, give him the black belt, do you think? I think he's made it. The most honorary Irish man in MMA.
Absolutely. Black belt, what do we do?
You just tell him you're a black belt now, Helwani.
That
Ariel
doesn't feel...
Helwani, MMA Supremo, pro wrestling fan from the 90s and now, and current Shamrock Rovers fan. You are a black belt in Irish crack.
There you go. Well done.
Wow,
Ariel.
what
it's
an
a big
honor.
moment.
What an honor. Thank you, guys. Great to be here. Sorry if I was a little long-winded, but you got me.
We loved it.
I was in the fields. I was in my fields, as the kids like to say. I wish you guys the best. Thank you for having me. Sorry for my tardiness. Sorry for having to reschedule. Sorry for making you wait. Sorry for everything. This is my therapy in terms of trying to
It's quite all right, my man.
with all the issues in my life.
We'll organise an official Irish crack certificate in the post to you as well, so you can proudly display that on the fridge or wherever you want to. Gentlemen, it has been a pleasure. And Petesy, before we let you wonderful people go, the amazing Ringer MMA Show, where can people listen to that, my friend?
You can listen to it exclusively on Spotify. We have a show actually tomorrow. Well, I don't know when this is coming out.
It's going on Saturday morning.
Saturday morning. We're going to be doing a show right after the main event, UFC 266. It's one of the biggest events in a long time. I've got people reaching out to me that haven't watched the sport in years just to tune in to see Nick Diaz. So I know there's going to be big reaction. Jump on Spotify Green Room straight after the show to talk to me, Ariel, and Chuck, and have a bit of banter with the listeners. And then, of course, if you can't do that, it's going to be out on Spotify the next day, the full podcast. And I'm having a great time. It's the best thing I've ever been involved in. And it's a pleasure to work with the Jordan of MMA media over there, Mr. Ariel Helwani.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Ariel, it was surreal talking to you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Here, and I'm actually annoyed about that. That's my joke with you. Sean Sheehan taking everything I live for, motherfucker.
No. Danny, where can you listen to us?
I was going to say, yeah, you can get us. We're not exclusive. We're saying we're whores. We'll go anywhere. So we're on all the podcast places, and you can ask Alexa to play us and everything, and she will, because she sounds like that. You just ask for WTS Pod, and we're there. All 270 whatever episodes I said at the start of this thing, they're waiting for you. You can get us on Twitter. You can get us on. Where else are we? Instagram? Are we on Instagram? You're on Instagram.
Don't ask me, man. I don't.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm 4 weeks out and I've lost the rhythm of the plug at the end. Do you know what I mean? I'm at Danjo Murray on social media. He's at Mega Mania. Petesy, Carroll, Ariel Helwani, the Ringer MMA Show. Lads, it has been an absolute blinder. Thank you so much. Graham Merrigan, until next week.
Clear eyes.
full hearts.
Can't lose. Too sweet.